he do it again? Might hit it. Billy stops, pops, Billy, good hero, again, a back-to-back nights. Oh, boy. 1.5 seconds, no timeouts. Tyreek at the hole. Oh, my goodness.
Cousins gets a touch, but he helped out.
That is a man's jam! DeMarcus Cousins nearly brought down the backboard and rim.
You're now listening to the Kings Court Podcast, presented by SacKingsNation.com. Here are your hosts, Vince Miracle and Drew Runberg.
Welcome to the Kings Court Podcast. I'm your host, Vince Miracle. Joining me today is actually not Drew Runberg. Special guest today. What's up, Joe? Been a while since we did a show together again.
I know, the Kings Court Podcast. We haven't done this since July probably together. That's pretty crazy. Glad to be back to the original game that we used to play together. So let's kick it, man. Let's talk about some Kings basketball.
Let's talk about some Kings basketball. 5-game winning streak has now turned into a 4-game losing streak. The Kings are not in the 8th seed anymore. They're falling down to the playoff standings. I believe they're now 10th in the playoff standings.
They're in the 10th spot, right behind Utah.
Oh my goodness, it's not looking pretty right now. Let me get your thoughts, Joe, on what you've seen this past week from the Sacramento Kings and your thoughts on their play thus far.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. The Sacramento Kings losing that game at home against Charlotte, it was a heartbreaker. I mean, hey, I was in the building. I was screaming. I couldn't talk for a couple days. And it was a heartbreaker, but hey, you got to get over it. You can't have a 4-game losing streak because you have one bad night. You got to be able to shake those losses off. You got to be able to move forward. You got to be able to play better, even though you have a bad night, even though it all goes wrong, even though the NBA admitted that we should have won that game, even though they admitted they were wrong in the call that they made. You still got to be able to shake it off, water off a duck's back, move forward, and the Kings should have been able to shake that off by now. 4 games is an unacceptable losing streak because of 1 or 2 bad things that happen. And we need to see them move forward with a little bit more gusto, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I understand why most fans are upset. They see the travel. Of course, you know, the referees are there to call stuff like that. But you see it all the time. The refs miss calls. In a moment like that, there's 11 seconds left on the clock. It's one of those plays where he got it, and Troy Daniels was on fire. He threw the ball in the air, and it happened to go in. It was a dagger. It hurt the Kings. It hurt the mental stability of this Kings, which looks like it's still at a low point right now during this NBA season, and it's showing. And that's why they've now lost 4 in a row and see themselves falling down into the playoff standings, which is not good, especially for a team that seems to be all in about making the playoffs this year and has arguably the best roster compared to what's fighting for that final 8th spot, which is very disappointing to see. But at the same time, again, I understand the missed call. My biggest thing is I thought they should have had Kosta Koufis in the game. They were destroying the people on the inside. I know Kosta Koufis isn't, the most athletic player on the team, but he is someone who knows how to do a turnaround hook shot, can, bully someone in the post when needed. And the only big man they had on the floor was Frank Kaminsky, and I'm talking about that Charlotte game. So they probably should have put him in. But then losing to Portland, I'll give them a little bit of a pass. You're tired. You're coming on the second game of back-to-back on a double overtime game the night before. That one's okay. But then they lost to New Orleans, a team without Anthony Davis, without Tyreek Evans, without Eric Gordon.
That's unacceptable.
Yeah, they let Ryan Anderson score 18 points in the first quarter alone to tie his career high of 36. I mean, it's been the last couple games between the Pelicans and now the Memphis Grizzlies. It's been a lack of effort, and the way they start the games has been very disappointing. And they're putting themselves in such a big hole that they just can't find a way to get out of it by the time the fourth quarter comes around.
They're fighting an uphill battle every single game. They can't seem to take over. And when they do, they make it close at the end. It's like if they're winning, they like to make it close. If they're losing, they like to make it close. But man, oh man, can they never finish that fourth. They just don't know what to do in the last 12 minutes of basketball.
Yeah, it's something that, it's going to be very important to watch, especially with these games that are coming up this week with a 4-game week, on the table for them. They have to win. They have to finish with above 500 over these 4 games. So they need to at least go, what's a 3-1. They need to go 3-1. They can only lose one game this week if they want to find themselves back in that playoff race. Yes, they are right there. I believe they're 2.5 games out or 3 games out. I'm not looking at the standings right in front of me, but they're 2.5 games, 3 games out, and it's slowly but surely getting out of their reach, and they need to bring it back in. And games against the Milwaukee Bucks, the Boston Celtics, and even the Brooklyn Nets are great games to find themselves coming back into. Although Boston, we saw what happened in New Mexico, but Milwaukee is a team that's, the Kings should be able to beat, and Brooklyn is a team the Kings should be able to beat. The only problem is you never know if they're actually going to do what they are, quote unquote, supposed to do. So I'm not going to lie, I'm worried about this team, Joe.
The standings are looking good right now, man. I am looking at them, and the Kings are only 1.5 back. I understand the concern. We're having a couple rough weeks. It's up and down. The Kings go up. The Kings go down. The Kings have a good game. The Kings have a bad game. Then the Kings have 4 bad games. But at the end of it, in the last decade, when could you say that the Kings were 1.5 out of the playoffs halfway through the season? It's been pretty few and far between over the last decade. So to be able to say you're 1.5 back in February, coming into February, that's pretty good for a Kings team that hasn't done that in a while. Is there a rough February? Is there a rough March coming up for the Kings team? Yeah, there is. And again, we got San Antonio a couple times. We got Cleveland coming in. We got Boston coming in. And again, like you said a second ago, what did Boston do to the Kings team that went down to Mexico? Well, it was embarrassing. It was one of the most embarrassing games I've ever seen in my life. We got the Clippers coming in, and the Kings haven't beat them this year. It's been a rough one. But there's a chance. There's still a chance, and that's, again, the first time that the Kings can say that in a long time. Cleveland 2 times in the next 2 months. There's a handful of teams that are just going to be real tough to beat when they come into Sacramento, or even, we're playing Cleveland at home, then we're playing Cleveland away. And you look at all these teams coming in and going out, and you go, it's going to be a rough 2 months. But if you can just stay within 1 or 2, going into that April month, there's some really good games coming up there where we have a shot, where the Kings have a shot to really put themselves in a good position to where that last game at Arco/Sleep Train can be the one that might clinch them a spot. And how beautiful would that be? You know me, Vince. You know me well enough to know I'm an eternal optimist. I like to believe that last game at Sleep Train, that last game at Arco, when we're making Arco Thunder for what would be the last time, they're going to build us up and give us a couple more games by making the playoffs. So that's my take.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. We're recording on Sunday. You guys are listening to it on this beautiful Monday morning, afternoon, or night, whatever time you're listening to it. Hey, maybe it's a Tuesday. We really don't know. But, the Portland Trailblazers are winning right now, 72-74. They are the ones that are right behind the Sacramento Kings or right above the Sacramento Kings in the standings. You let me know. Are they right above or right below them in the standings right now, the Portland Trailblazers?
So Portland is ahead of the Kings. They're 22-26 right now. So they're 22 games back, which, again, Golden State, we're not even really chasing them. And we're 23, or the Kings are 23.5 games back. Utah and Portland are actually tied at 22 games back.
Okay, so Portland's actually...
But Utah is 21-25. So they played 2 more games is the difference.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. Just about the teams in general. Portland is a team that they were not expected to be a playoff team. They lost 4 of the 5 players that were in their starting 5 last season. Utah has been devastated with injuries, with Rudy Gobert going out, Dante Exum, Alec Burks, Derek Favors missed some time, and yet they've still found a way to get themselves back in the 8th seed and be fighting for a playoff spot. And that's where you question whether or not, even if the Kings make an 8th seed during those final few games in the month of April, is it really a step in the right direction because of what this season has been? Phoenix lost Eric Bledsoe. Houston has not been the same team, but they're still above the Kings in the stand. It's just been an awkward year for the Western Conference in the NBA, and I don't know how confident anybody would be saying, "Oh yes, the Kings made the playoffs." Yeah, they sure did, but did they make it in a season where they probably should have been dominating that 8th seed? Because as of right now, I'm looking at this team, and I'm looking at the teams that are fighting for the 8th seed, and the Kings have the superior roster. They have the superior in coaching, and they're just not playing like it, and they have not turned that corner, and that's why I took it back to the store, and I took it back, and I almost wanted to go and repurchase, saying that the Kings have turned the corner the last time Drew and I did this show, and I'm so glad I took it back, because now, after winning 5 games in a row, they've lost 4 in a row. They've dropped 4, and they have a tough game ahead of them in Milwaukee today for all the fans that are listening on this Monday. So it becomes a pick and pull type of thing on even if the Kings make the playoffs and it comes down to that last game, is it not necessarily is it worth it, but was it a good season? And that's where I still have to say, as of right now, it's a no.
You say that, but it's not a good season, but is it the best season they've had in a long time? It's not a good season.
It's an improvement.
When was the last time you could say the Sacramento Kings? Yeah. I'm just saying, when was the last time the Sacramento Kings had what you would call a good season?
So, I mean, if I had to give
it's like saying making the playoffs, you go, that's like saying you have a bad lottery win. No. If you're in, you're in. And I don't care how you got there. I don't care if you stumbled across the line. If you get the gold in the Olympics, hell, if you get the bronze, you had a good day. So, yeah, you stumbled across the line, you barely made it, but it's better than the Kings have done in a decade. And it's what they needed to do this year to move into that new stadium, to move into the new money cap that we're going to have next year, the new salary cap, and be able to spend some money on guys and be able to say, hey, this Kings team isn't kidding. This Kings team is serious. We're going to attempt to get better. The Kings are going to try to actually bring in some talent. And you add one more piece. You add a 2-guard right now, this is an amazing team. You just add one more piece. The Kings just can't get that last piece to fit in that little Rubik's Cube. You know, it's that last little stubborn square that just won't turn to the right color, you know. That 2-guard, man, if the Kings could just get a 2-guard, this team would be almost unstoppable. They're playing 4-on-5 half the time right now. We don't have a 2-guard that's worth playing. And I'm not trying to be mean. They're better than 99% of the population, but not better than any of the other 2-guards in the league. Well, hey, man, you get a good one, and this team would be absolutely unstoppable right now.
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I just wouldn't go that far. The Kings' defense has been atrocious. That's why it's ranked at the bottom. And it's not because they're playing 4-on-5. It's many different reasons. It's the defense that's coming back in transition. It's the switching. It's the not talking.
Yeah, the switch.
It's the not talking on defense. And Quincy Acee has said that before in an interview with James Ham on the CSN Insider podcast, where basically he's like, yeah, we need to talk more on defense. The loudest person on the floor, it looks like to be Rajon Rondo, and you can see that on TV and you can hear it at a game. I mean, it's one of those things where there's so many problems that I don't think just one player at one position would make it fix and say this team would be so much better if they, let's say, had a Tony Allen or a Danny Green at that 2 spot. There's more variables to this Kings team, and as of right now, of what I'm looking like, that Charlotte game looked to be a pivotal moment, just like that Philly game was when they started winning games. And of course, DeMarcus Cousins has been playing great, but the mental stability of this team, it just has not looked good. No matter how well DeMarcus Cousins has been playing, no matter how many assists Rajon Rondo is putting in a game, they're not winning games right now. They're now on a 4-game losing streak and are now 5-6 over their past 11. So it's just not looking good for the Kings right now.
I understand what you're saying, and when I said that the Kings would be amazing with with a new 2-guard, what I mean is they'd be about where Memphis is right now. We wouldn't be discussing whether or not they were in the playoffs. We'd be discussing whether or not they were going to make the 6th, the 7th, or the 8th seed. That's the difference right now. I'm not saying that their defense would be cured. Again, I'm saying that I think that they would be able to have a much more substantial season than they're having right now. That's definitely the position that's leaking the most. Again, add a Tony Allen to this roster, and do you think that they'd be where Memphis is right now? And I mean, we're playing hypotheticals, but you don't really. You don't think.
I don't think one player changes the entire.
You don't think
defensive
they could have added 8 games?
No, one player does not add 8 games, especially a guy like Tony Allen, who is not known for his offense, and defensively he can't stop every play. The defensive leaks that this team has comes from the entire team. It doesn't come from one position. It comes from all the switches. It comes from the mismatches that the other teams are taking advantage of. It comes from the non-communication. It comes from plenty of different things. One player is not going to change it at all. I don't think adding a Tony Allen or a Danny Green would change anything except for maybe a better defensive outing on some nights from that one position. But I'm not going to you look at this team, you see that the defense is a problem. You see why they're ranked at the bottom, both in transition and, in the half court. And the half court is where most teams are beating them, as long as they can control and dictate what the pace is going to be in each game, because the Kings are number one in pace. That's fine. But when other teams slow down and get them in the half court, they get them lost. They get the Kings bewildered, and they start scoring on them. And you see that. So I don't think adding one more piece changes it to 8 games to 5 games or puts them at Memphis's level, because Memphis, they play grit, grind defense, and they do that from position 1 to position 5, from their top 5 guys to their last 10 guys, and they do it on a night in and night out basis. Not been pretty to watch, but there's now a new slate of games. There's 4 games this week, Joe. It's Kings Week time.
Give the people what they want.
Back to the future.
And here we go.
All right, Joe. It's the first game on the docket here is Milwaukee. They rank 27th in defensive efficiencies and 20th in offensive efficiency, so they're not good on either end of the floor, but they do have a couple of players like Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jabari Parker, Greg Monroe down in the low post. They have, nice little pieces that they're looking to build around. You see this matchup, Joe. What are some key things that you're looking at?
Okay, look, you were talking about the post. If DeMarcus stays down low, the Sacramento Kings win games when DeMarcus Cousins scores down low. I love the fact that he tries to space it every once in a while, but the difference between winning and losing sometimes is one extra 3-shot all game. If he takes more than 2.33 shots, we seem to lose games. If he takes 1.7, we seem to win games. It doesn't sound like a lot. It's a huge difference. He needs to stay low. He needs to fight his way down low. No one on that team can stop him. No one can come close to stopping him.
Yeah, and
at the same time, what's that?
Oh, well, I do have to put the tag on there that DeMarcus Cousins is listed as questionable for this matchup because he left, the Memphis game with an ankle injury late in the fourth quarter. So we don't know 100% if Cousins is going to be in this game. So if you take that into consideration, let's say Cousins is not in the game, what are some things that you think the Kings need to do if they want to come out with the win?
Well, I'll say this first. Cousins' x-rays came back negative, and they think it's just a left ankle sprain. Of course, that kind of thing. You never really know. He's listed as day-to-day, so is he there, is he not there? 50-50 either way, obviously. I mean, it is questionable, so that's exactly 50%. Same time, if we don't, do you think the Costa Kuvas couldn't play down there? Do you think that Willie Cauley couldn't play down there? And somebody else just has to step up. The Kings have to learn the next man up mentality. They have to learn that, hey, the big man's out. Now what, coach? And they got to get in there and they got to do it. They got to let Omri shoot more threes. The guy is on fire from the three-point land. I don't know why the Kings aren't putting the ball in his hand more at distance. For some reason, Bellinelli's shooting so many threes, it's unreal, and he's making 23% in the last month. And you take the ball out of his hand, put it into Omri's hands, and see what happens. You got to get some dribble drives out of Gay, because he's been able to get some fouls, and he's been able to pull a couple of shots over the last couple games where he's driving in, getting the foul, getting the basket, because nobody knows how to stop him in that one element there. He's hitting the mid-range shots, but he should probably stay either to driving it in or to shooting close. He just hasn't been real hot from the three land lately.
My key to the game is stop paint penetration. Giannis Antetokounmpo is my biggest matchup as well, so I'm also going to go to the key matchup of the game. It's going to be Rudy Gay versus Giannis Antetokounmpo. Over this past week, Giannis Antetokounmpo has shot 58% for the field, while averaging 20 points, 6.7 rebounds, 3.7 assists, 1.7 steals, 1 block, but also turning the ball over 3.3 times per game. But he does fill up the stat sheet, and he cannot be stopped when he walks into the paint. It almost looks like he's walking. He drives straight in, and no one can really stop him. He's the Greek freak for a reason. He's very athletic. He's very crafty. He basically plays point forward for this team. He's definitely going to be a handful for Rudy Gay to, take advantage of. But I think you brought up Costa Kufis. I think, he's going to be the guy that needs to step up for the Kings and help out Rudy Gay, be that help defender, because I know Willie Cauley-Stein is not the beefiest guy and not the strongest guy yet to stick up with the guy with Greg Monroe. But as a help defender, I think Willie Cauley-Stein is really good at coming over. And if Koufos is coming over to be let's just say a speed bump or a roadblock for Giannis Antetokounmpo when he's driving, if he kicks it to Greg Monroe, Willie Cauley-Stein has to be there to contest it, which he actually is really good at, and he's been showing a lot of defensive promise. I love it when Willie Cauley-Stein comes out there with his energy, but it's going to have to come down to Rudy Gay taking on the task of guarding a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo and the Kings stopping paint penetration. But you look at these keys, Joe, you look at the key matchup of the game, who do you think wins this one?
I'm going to say the Kings win it. The fact that it's at home, I was going to give it a 50-50 toss-up. But Milwaukee has been having a rough stretch. I'm going to say that they come home, they shake their heads off, and they're able to pull a win out here. And so that's my prediction for it. Kings over Milwaukee.
Ooh, I've been still flipping a quarter here. I could see the Kings dropping 5 in a row with this one. They are at home. Hopefully the home environment takes them over that spot. And honestly, the Kings need Cousins. I believe they're 1-8 with Cousins out of the lineup, so that's not looking good on their end either. However, with Cousins in or out, I'm also going to say that the Kings will take this win and they'll defeat the Milwaukee Bucks. Also, just so you guys know, while we are on Kings Week and we were talking about wins and losses, Drew and I, for the very first time on this show, are still stuck at a deadlock tie. He thought the Kings were going to be able to defeat Memphis. I thought the Kings were going to lose. I also thought the Kings were going to beat the Portland Trail Blazers, while Drew thought they were going to lose, and the rest of it we say the exact same, and we were already tied the week prior. So the two games that were supposed to be our splits turned out to keep us in a tie. So he actually texted me and to let me know who he thinks is going to win. So in this matchup, he also believes the Sacramento Kings will take this victory. So moving on to the next game here, we have the Chicago Bulls. But before I also move on to this game, I also want to remind everyone that SacKingsNation.com is sponsored by FanDuel. For one-day fantasy sports, scroll all the way down to the bottom of SacKingsNation.com. Click on that FanDuel link, sign on in, put in $10, and start playing daily fantasy sports. We're actually going to be hosting a ton of contests through FanDuel. You guys want to definitely stay included on stuff like that. We're going to be giving away a ton of prizes, so look out for great items and following us on Twitter at SKN Articles or myself or Drew at VM Center or at Drew_Runberg. So we move on to the next matchup here, Joe. It's Chicago. They are ranked 5th in defensive efficiencies while also being ranked 25th in offensive efficiencies. They just took a devastating loss to the Los Angeles Clippers this Sunday. What are your thoughts about this matchup?
This is all about the Kings defense. The whole game is going to be about whether or not the Kings defense shows up. The Chicago Bulls cannot score. They're not a scoring team. They're not doing – I mean, it's the opposite of the 90s. It's everything opposite of what they used to be. Now they're more defensive and less offensive. There's nothing that they can do on the offensive side of things. Defensively, they're amazing. So can our offense overpower their defense, or can their defense overpower ours? I repeated myself, but you understand what I'm saying. They're at the bottom of the league in offensive production, and they're at the top of the league on defense. So and we're the exact opposite. The Kings are at the top of the league in scoring in many ways, and the Kings are at the bottom of the league in all defensive categories. So it's the exact opposite teams matching up. Unstoppable force, immovable object. Who wins? Chicago is probably favored if you had to go with a Vegas line. But at the same time, it's who breaks first. Is the Kings defense going to show up and say, no more? And to be honest with you, to call this game, I almost need to see the score of the Milwaukee game first. And I'm going to give you a prediction at the end of this, but the Milwaukee game determines how I feel about this game. So, if they come into it with motivation and with confidence, then they're going to do. Then I believe they're going to win it. And if they come into it having just been abused, then I think they're going to lose it. It's either going to be 2 wins in a row or 2 losses in a row.
So with this Chicago team, like I said, they're 25th in offensive efficiencies. The Kings are ranked at 13th in offensive efficiencies. So yes, the Kings are, and the Kings are leading the league in pace. Completely get it. However, the Sacramento Kings also let the opposing teams dictate how the speed of the offense is going to go. The Chicago Bulls love to sit in that half-court offensive set, running the ball through Pau Gasol, and that's where I see the Kings having a ton of trouble. If DeMarcus Cousins is not in this game, it's an automatic L. You don't even need a prediction for me on that one. I don't see the Kings being able to stop that two-man wrecking crew of Pau Gasol or Taj Gibson. And let me just say this right now, Pau Gasol was a complete snub. As much as I liked seeing Isaiah Thomas make the All-Star team for the Eastern Conference team, Pau Gasol should have been in there. He got completely snubbed. And while I'm on it, Pau Gasol is going to be the matchup of the night. I'm going to assume DeMarcus Cousins is in this game, so I'm going to have DeMarcus Cousins versus Pau Gasol. Again, Pau Gasol over the last week of games has been averaging 51% from the field, while averaging 20 points, 14.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 0.5 steals, 1.5 blocks, and turning the ball over 2.5 times. He's almost like the team's point guard. The offense runs through him. He can beat you in many different ways. He just has a full all-around package. Then you bring in a defensive-minded Jimmy Butler, who he's turning into a superstar. Jimmy Butler is amazing to watch. Derrick Rose is starting to find his place on this team, and the Chicago Bulls are a defensive force, and the Kings, I don't know if they're going to be able to stop it. So, key to the game is going to be dictate the speed of the game. They have to set the tone. They have to set it early, and they can't let the Chicago Bulls run what they want to run. The Kings have to have the Bulls run what they want to run, and that is a fast up and down game. The matchup of the game is going to be Pau Gasol versus DeMarcus Cousins, of course. Like I said, it's going to be a rough one. It's going to be who can stop who. DeMarcus Cousins has to be in this game, or I really don't see the Kings having a fair shot at winning this one. Joe, you hear the keys of the game, you hear the matchups. Who do you have winning?
Again, I want to see the Milwaukee score first, but I'm going to say the Kings. I really am. At home, DeMarcus plays. You said the matchup of the day is Gasol versus Cousins. I do not agree. I think the matchup of the day is Taj Gibson and Willie Cauley-Stein if that gets together, because it's the secondary matchup. Cousins and Pau Gasol are going to have a battle, but that's not where the game's going to be decided at, because they're both going to be beasts. They've always been beasts. They are beasts. Stopping Jimmy Butler is going to be almost impossible. He's amazing lately. In fact, you were talking about FanDuel. That man has paid my lunch money a couple times. He has really helped me out on FanDuel. But again, I think the matchup is going to be, can Willie Cauley-Stein stop Taj Gibson completely from being underneath as much as he wants? If that can happen, if somebody can slow down Jimmy Butler. Again, I got the Kings at home.
I have the Chicago Bulls winning it. With Cousins, without Cousins. I think the Kings need to have Cousins if they want to have a fair chance at winning this one. But the Chicago Bulls are a well-rounded team. They're a smart team. They're a defensive-minded team. And they're basically the Memphis team, but with better offensive weapons. And I don't know if the Kings are going to be able to take advantage of any mismatch that they have, because I feel more of the mismatches for anybody is on Chicago's side with Jimmy Butler at the shooting guard position, Pau Gasol being so smart and intelligent. He's one of those guys that may not be able to muscle out a guy like DeMarcus Cousins, but he has the intelligence to nitpick and to possibly get into someone's head, and he just plays his own game. And there's just a lot of issues. You brought up Taj Gibson versus Willie Cauley-Stein, or Taj Gibson versus Rudy Gay. I mean, there's mismatches more that benefit more for the Chicago Bulls than it looks like for the Sacramento Kings. So whether Cousins are in or not, I have the Chicago Bulls winning this game. I'm looking over Drew's text message again, and he also has the Chicago Bulls winning this game. So he and I are tied still through these first two games as we move on to game number 3.
Before you move forward, I have something else to say. So one of the things that has to be stated here on SacKingsNation that happens quite a bit is we like to bring large groups of people out to the game. And to that game, the Kings gave me a special link, and you can go there. You can buy tickets to the game really cheap, tickets to the Chicago game. We're going to go out as a group. You'll get a free bobblehead out of the deal. And all you have to do, follow me on Twitter at SacKingsJMorgan, and you will find the link. You will find the bobblehead link. You can get tickets cheap. And like I said, come out, help us yell, and help decide that game. Help make Drew and Vince wrong.
So our third game here is the Brooklyn Nets. We're on the road. They're flying out to Brooklyn. Brooklyn's in the house. Sorry, I had to do it. Anyways, Brooklyn is ranked 28th in offensive efficiency and is ranked 24th in defensive efficiencies. You're looking at this matchup, Joe. You see this team that is, you don't know what's going on. I really don't understand what's going on with this Brooklyn team and what they're going to even do to get better. But you're looking at this team. What do you see?
Look, Brooklyn is horrible this year. There's no question about it. They're not doing anything that they're supposed to do. They're just having a rough run of it. They're second to worst. I mean, the only team worse than them is Philly, which that doesn't shock anybody. Philly this year, I don't even know if they know how to basketball. It's like they found 5 random people out of the audience, and if you won a prize, you got to be on the team. But Brooklyn is only a step above that. They got a .250 winning percentage. They're on a 3-game losing streak right now. I can't imagine they're not going to continue that. They don't have any prospects of anybody doing well. Their shooting guard is supposed to be a beast, and he forgot how to basketball this year. Joe Johnson he's not doing. I mean, nobody on the team is doing anything, and yet that is the team this week that scares me the most because the Kings play down to their opponents. The Kings forget how to basketball when they're playing somebody else who doesn't know how to basketball. And it scares me more than a good team. I would rather face a good team than have the Kings face a Brooklyn or a Philly because somehow the Kings forget what they're doing. They forget how to shoot. They forget how to defend. They let a team that doesn't know how to play run all over them. They'll tighten it up against a Cleveland. They'll tighten it up against the Toronto. They'll play tight against an Oklahoma City. And then Philly comes into town or Brooklyn comes into town and slaps them around. I don't understand it. I don't know what's happening. There's no way to predict a thing like that. There's no way to say, well, we have better players, we have better matchups, we have everything better in the world. And like I said, that's the game that scares me the most this week.
Yeah, so with the Brooklyn Nets, it's one of those teams where they're a mishposh of a bunch of players. Joe Johnson's an aging veteran that's getting paid a ridiculous amount of money that just can't be moved. He's not going to ask to – I believe he has a trade clause on his thing where he gets to decide if he gets traded or not. I think Brooklyn's trying to buy him out, but he's not really looking for a buyout because, of course, he wants to make that extra money. They're not going to trade away their best assets. They're trying, which is Thaddeus Young. Brook Lopez, they'd be open to trading him, but the value for him because of his injuries aren't looking that great. So they're just missed players that just can't do much, and they're going to be stuck in mediocrity because they also don't have any draft picks because of that Boston trade they made to get Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, and it just has not turned out well for them. But I'm looking at this team, and again, it's a team, like you said, that the Kings should be able to dominate. It's a game that the Kings should be able to walk in there and know they're going to win. However, as you also alluded to, the Sacramento Kings play down to the
However,
the Sacramento Kings also plays down to the talent that comes into their arena, or the arena that they enter. And when they are supposed to win a game, and when it's a game that they have a superior roster from top to bottom, the coaching is superior, they still find a way to make it close and become a nail biter, and it gives the opposing team a chance to win. So that's my only problem. I mean, the only thing that I can say about this team is now the keys to the game and the player matchup, which is the key to the game is play to your level. So basically, play to the level of talent that you are, and that's going to be the key to the game. The matchup of the game, however, is going to be Thaddeus Young versus Rudy Gay. Rudy Gay and Thaddeus Young is going to be the funnest thing to watch. Thaddeus Young is not an offensively gifted player. He's a guy that needs to get off by going through the basket and doing layups and mid-range jump shots, but he's really good at defense, and I can see him being a problem for a guy like Rudy Gay, where on the other end, Rudy Gay is very offensively gifted. His defense is subpar, and I don't know, that's just going to be a fun one to watch. There's really not necessarily a key matchup where I'm saying the Kings can't dominate at every position that is on the floor. I see the Kings being dominant at every position from top to bottom on their roster. There's no one on the Brooklyn Nets team that I feel is better than anyone that's on the Sacramento Kings team. So that's why the key of the game is play to the level of talent that the Sacramento Kings team is. So with that all being said, I have this Sacramento Kings team taking the W in this one. Joe, who do you see winning?
They just can't play to their own potential when a team comes in that's horrible. And I don't know how to express that any better. We're going to lose to Brooklyn. Joe Johnson is going to have the only good game he's had all year. Thad Young is going to absolutely run all over the Kings. And why? Because we're going to let him.
All right, guys. Well, it's the final game of the week, and it's now also our game of the week.
We can't have anyone freak out there, okay? We've got to keep our composure.
This game of the week is also now presented by BrickHouseIndustries.com. Go to BrickHouseIndustries.com, use the promo code KingsCourt, and get a discount on us. They have great t-shirts, sweaters, socks, hats, everything's going on over there. BrickHouseIndustries.com. Check them out. Use the promo code KingsCourt and let them know you heard them from us. So the final game here, the game of the week, is the Boston Celtics, who are ranked second in defensive efficiencies and are ranked 13th in offensive efficiencies. The pizza guy is now an all-star. Man, the Boston Celtics ran amok with this team back in New Mexico. Joe, you see this matchup. Gotta ask you again. What are you thinking?
Oh, my Lord. You talk about the pizza guy being an all-star. How did that happen? Where did that come from? What in the world? You get rid of a guy and, yeah, it is what it is. Okay, Boston. After what happened in Mexico, how do the Kings not owe them a little bit back? How do they not owe them? I mean, a guy comes in and slaps you around in front of a national or an international audience. How do you not turn it around and have some motivation and come in there and just annihilate that team? I'm not sure. I really hope that the Kings can shake loose the beast inside of themselves and wake up and go, this team, the last time we saw them, slapped us across our faces, and there is no excuse not to turn that around and give it back. If a guy comes up and slaps you, you better slap him back. And they've given the Kings a heck of a slap to the face in Mexico City. So if they don't come back and they don't fight a little harder, I'll be real shocked. So I again, I'm not going to give my prediction yet, but I think that Boston team with no center to speak of, that I think Cousins can actually absolutely run amok in the paint. I think that Caspi can just drain threes all night if they let him go wild. I think if you keep Bellinelli down to about 15 minutes total and he doesn't just throw the ball up in his sideways jumpers, you combine all those things, and again, I see that being a really good game for the Kings. So,
all right.
How about you, brother?
All right, so this is actually going to bring me to my Who Dat Stat of the Week.
You play to win the game.
Not a game.
Hello? You have to know these things when you're a king, you know.
All right, Joe. So I'm looking at this Sacramento Kings and Boston team. Boston is 27-22 with an above 500 record, and the Sacramento Kings have now won 20 games, but they are 20-27 on the season. But what if I had told you that this Kings team statistically are almost on par with each other? I mean, you wouldn't believe. You wouldn't believe how close they are. So I'm just gonna run down some stats for you, and just let you guys see these couple of stats that I have for the Who Dat Stat of the Week this week. So the Sacramento Kings, we all know, are ranked number 1 in pace at a 102.1. The Boston Celtics are at 101.2. That close in the pace category. In assists per game, the Sacramento Kings average 17.8. The Boston Celtics rate 17.7. And turnovers a game, the Sacramento Kings are at 14.5. The Boston Celtics are at 12.7. Sacramento Kings on offensive rebounds per game are at 24.4. Boston Celtics 25.1. And defensive rebounds, Sacramento Kings are at 76.5, while Boston is at 74.5. Yet, one team is over 500 and the other is not. I guess you can also accrue that to the fact of one is in the West, one is in the East. But I see these stats and I don't see that much of a difference, except to say that defensively, Boston gets it done. Defensively, they're number 2 in the league with defensive efficiencies, and the Kings are ranked at the bottom. So that's where I see my biggest issues for this Sacramento Kings team, which has a lot of questions for me because we do know what happened in Mexico, and it just seemed, you can say it was because they were out of breath because of the change of air or the flight out there, anything. I don't know what the problem was. but they got run down. It's the same thing it's the same night that Rondo situation all spurred out. But man, you brought it up. The key of the game is going to be run through DeMarcus Cousins because they don't really have any centers down there for the Boston Celtics. I mean, they have Kelly Olynyk has been a starter, Amir Johnson, David Lee has tried to be a starter at some time this season, and I mean, they're just doing a carousel at that position, and they're going to have to do so against a guy like DeMarcus Cousins. They are in Boston, but again, I don't see any position here except for maybe shooting guard where the Kings are not at least matched on par with that position. I mean, you have Jay Crowder and Rudy Gay, which I'm going to get to in just a second, but I mean, Joe, you're looking at these two teams. I already asked you what are you seeing, but I've listed off these stats here, and you're looking at some of these players. I mean, what key matchup would you say there is for this Boston and Sacramento game?
Well, the same thing I said before. It's all about, like you said, running it through DeMarcus down low. Kelly Olynyk has no shot at stopping him. There's no chance to stop that. But I think the secondary matchup there is going to be Isaiah Thomas and Rajon Rondo, and who can get the most assists that night, who can keep the ball moving, who can run the pace. You said how close the pace is. So obviously those floor generals are going to have to be the ones to keep that pace up and decide who's going to move it faster, who's going to be a better pace team, and have less turnovers. Because that is where a lot of these games are won and lost, is in the turnovers. The Kings end up giving away 19 turnovers, 20 turnovers, well, the game is over. At the same time, if the Kings can limit that, there's no reason that they shouldn't beat this team. Again, what I told you before, I think it's all about Vince. You know me well enough to know I believe a lot of this game is motivation. I believe a lot of this game is the ability to have that intensity, and after the slap in the face, and if the Kings can keep the pace up, there's no reason they don't beat this team. And if you run it through DeMarcus down low, that's all they got to do. And they should come away with a W here.
Yeah, so the matchup of the game, of course, I'm not going to go with DeMarcus Cousins. That's the easy one out. It's going to be Jay Crowder and Rudy Gay. I think at the point guard position, that dual punch of, Rajon Rondo, Darren Collison attacking Isaiah Thomas. And it looks like, watching film and looking over this Boston team, opposing teams when they face Boston, they're starting to figure out how to slow down Isaiah Thomas a little bit, and it's kind of like putting a bigger guy on him, slowing him down a little bit. So I don't know, maybe Caspi can have his hands full trying to guard a guy like Jay Crowder. We won't really know. I don't think Isaiah Thomas is going to be as big of a factor as many think he is, although, again, against the Sacramento Kings in New Mexico, he was amazing, and he's been having an amazing season, so I don't want to count him out. Avery Bradley's been really good, but, again, I'm going to go with Jay Crowder and Rudy Gay. The key to the game here, again, is going to be running the ball through DeMarcus Cousins. So we have our matchups. We have our keys to the game. Joe, who do you think is winning this one?
The Kings are taking the game. The Kings are absolutely going to abuse Boston for what they did to them in Mexico City.
So you have the Kings going 3-1 this week.
3-1, and I think the only game is the one nobody thinks they're going to lose, as I say very often. I keep that. I don't want to talk myself into a depression here, but like you said, I think it's the only game that I think they're going to lose is the one that nobody else does.
So as much as I want to say that the Celtics are going to win, I just have a feeling that the Celtics are going to be able to pull it out. Their defense is really good. I mean, they're ranked number 2 right behind the Golden State Warriors in defensive efficiency, and they're tied right there at 13th with the Sacramento Kings in offensive efficiency. So I would want to say the Sacramento Kings, but I cannot stay in a complete tie with my co-host Drew Runberg. He also has the Celtics winning, so I'm going to give him the benefit of it just because he lost the last time we did this Kings Week thing. So I'm going to go. I'm going to go with you, Joe. I'm right. I'm going to say the Sacramento Kings take the W in Boston against the Boston Celtics. So I have the Kings going 2-2 this week. I have the Kings going 2-2 as well. So does my co-host. So there it is. Oh no, I have the Kings going 3-1 just with you. I just have them losing a different game. I have them 3-1, and my co-host has them 2-2. interesting week. But now I need your guys' fan votes. You guys let us know what you guys think. Do you think Joe and I are wrong? Do you guys see the Kings going 2-2 like the co-host Drew Runberg does? Do you have them winning going 4-0? Is this going to be a trend of a new hot streak here? We really don't know. But we also need you guys to start voting on what you guys want this Kings Week punishment to be, because it looks like you're definitely going to have one this week, as Drew and I have only had this last game. Our game of the week is going to be the one that lets us know who is going to be doing the Kings Week Challenge, which you guys have to vote on. So either A, one of us is going to be having to do a King's poem, where one of us writes down a 30-second poem and recites it here on the show, or the second one is one of our girlfriends, Drew actually has a wife, so Drew's wife, or my girlfriend, fiance, however you want to look at her, has to do our Sacramento Kings makeup in purple and black and post it on SacKingsNation's Twitter feed, where everyone has to retweet it and go check that out. You guys let us know. There will be a poll out on the game of the week, so look for that. Start casting your votes. Use the hashtag #TheKingsport. Let us know that you guys heard it. Give us a rating on iTunes. Let us know what you guys think. We're still doing that contest as well, as where you guys go rate us on iTunes. Take a screenshot of it, send it to us, or at least we'll see it. Put your Twitter handle inside the comment section of that rating. We'll find you, we'll direct message you, and you guys will win an awesome prize of a Jason Williams and Chris Webber plaque that we have here. It's awesome. It's amazing. You guys definitely want to get it. And Joe, thanks for joining the show today. Where can people find you online?
Hey, find me at SacKingsJMorgan on Twitter, and you can find me at SacSportsNation on Facebook.
Awesome. And all you guys follow me. I'm on all social media aspects of @VMCenter. Again, keep listening to the show. Use the hashtag #TheKingsport. Comment. Let us know what you all think. If you agree with us, if you disagree with us. Again, rate us on iTunes. Check out SacKingsNation.com for all of your in-depth coverage of the Sacramento Kings. And until next time, Sacramento Kings fans, bye-bye.